You sit down in a quiet room, and within seconds, you reach for your phone. The silence isn't painful. It isn't loud. It isn't even doing anything to you. But something in your body decides, quietly, firmly, without asking your permission, that this silence is a problem that needs to be solved. And that feeling, that low-level restlessness that drives you to fill every quiet moment with noise, with music, with a podcast, with anything at all, is not a modern invention. It is a survival signal, one that kept your ancestors alive for 2 million years before it started quietly ruining your ability to sit still for 10 minutes. The real reason you can't stand silence has almost nothing to do with boredom, and almost everything to do with what silence meant to a human brain that had to survive in the wild. Right now, your brain is running threat detection software that was written in the Pleistocene. It is looking for danger. It always is. And one of the oldest, most reliable signs of danger it knows, older than language, older than fire, older than the first stone tool, is silence. When the forest goes quiet, something is wrong. That is the rule your nervous system learned long before it learned anything else. Think about what a normal night sounded like for your ancestors. Crickets, wind, frogs at a nearby waterhole, the distant call of a bird, a constant low, ambient hum of life that told the brain, nothing is hunting right now. Everything is okay, you can rest. Then the crickets stop, the frogs go quiet, the birds disappear. In less than a second, the entire acoustic landscape around you changes. And in that silence, your ancestors' brain did not think how peaceful. It thought, something big is moving through the grass toward us. And it flooded the body with cortisol and adrenaline before the conscious mind could even form a sentence. Researchers like David Eagleman, who has spent years studying the predictive machinery of the human brain, have documented how deeply the brain relies on pattern recognition to monitor its environment. The brain does not simply react to what is happening. It constantly predicts what should happen next. When your auditory environment goes quiet, the brain's model of the world breaks. The expected sounds disappear. That mismatch is interpreted as threat, not metaphorically, physiologically. Your heart rate increases in silence. Your pupils dilate. Your body prepares to move. This is not anxiety. This is your threat detection system working exactly as designed. The problem is that it is still running. Right now, in your apartment, in your office, in your car when you forget to turn the radio on. In 2006, a study published in the journal Heart found that 2 minutes of silence was more relaxing than ambient music, but only after a period of stimulation. Before that stimulation, silence triggered measurable cardiovascular stress responses. Your body reads silence differently depending on context. In the wild, an unexpected silence was danger. A silence that came after safety was rest. Your nervous system still makes that exact distinction, but it has no way of knowing that the unexpected silence you are sitting in is a quiet Tuesday morning, and not a predator crouching 10 meters away. So you fill the silence. You always have. And so did they. Your ancestors were not quiet people. They were not meditative. They were loud. They sang while they worked. They chanted around fires. They told stories that stretched for hours into the night. Every major human culture ever discovered by anthropologists has been found to use music, rhythmic percussion, and communal storytelling as part of its daily social fabric. Ethnomusicologist Alan Lomax spent 4 decades documenting folk music across 6 continents and found that every society he studied, without exception, used song to regulate social cohesion and manage stress. Silence in those societies was not a default state. It was a temporary absence, and it was always noticed, because sound is not just sensory input. Sound is social information. When someone is near you, you know they are alive. You hear them breathe. You hear them shift their weight. You hear the tiny sounds that humans make simply by existing. Those sounds told your ancestors, all night, every night, in the darkness they could not see through, that their group was still there, that they were not alone, that the thing that had been hunting them had not already taken someone in the dark. Silence told them the opposite. Loneliness and silence became linked in the nervous system so early and so deeply that they now activate some of the same neural pathways. Researcher John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago spent 20 years studying the neuroscience of loneliness and found that the brain processes social isolation using circuits that overlap significantly with physical pain and threat detection. When you feel alone, your brain is not simply processing an emotion. It is interpreting a survival risk, and that risk gets louder the quieter the room becomes. This is why solitary confinement is considered a form of torture. This is why sensory deprivation tanks produce hallucinations within hours. This is why the average person, when placed in a completely silent room, begins to hear sounds that are not there. Your auditory cortex, when deprived of input, generates its own. Because to your brain, the complete absence of sound is so statistically improbable in nature that it reads as malfunction. Not peace. Malfunction. A study conducted at the Orfield Laboratories in Minneapolis found that people placed inside the world's quietest room, an anechoic chamber measuring -9 decibels, typically cannot stay inside for more than 45 minutes without experiencing disorientation, auditory hallucinations, or acute psychological distress. The longest anyone has voluntarily remained inside is reported to be 82 minutes. In a room with no sound at all, your brain begins to generate its own, because the alternative, accepting that the world is completely silent, is something it was never designed to process. Your ancestors were never in a room that quiet. They never needed to be prepared for it. So, what does all of this mean for the way you live today? It means that every time you reflexively turn on a podcast while cleaning your kitchen, you are not being lazy or avoidant. You are responding to a genuine survival signal that your brain is sending in exactly the way it was designed to send it. You are filling the forest with sound. You are telling your nervous system there are still living things nearby. It is still safe. It means that the person who cannot sit in a quiet room without reaching for their phone is not weak. They are running an ancient operating system on modern hardware, and the operating system is functioning perfectly. But it also means something else, something that most people never stop to consider. The fact that silence makes you uncomfortable is evidence that you were built for community. Your nervous system was calibrated around the assumption that other humans would always be nearby, always making noise, always present. The discomfort you feel in silence is not a flaw in your design. It is the biological record of 2 million years of interdependence. You were never supposed to be alone. Not for long, not in the dark, not without the low ambient hum of your people somewhere close. Psychologist Susan Pinker spent years studying face-to-face contact in human communities and found that the single strongest predictor of longevity, stronger than diet, stronger than exercise, stronger than quitting smoking, was the frequency and quality of in-person social contact. Your body knows this. It has always known this. The discomfort you feel in silence is your nervous system enforcing that knowledge before your conscious mind even has a chance to weigh in. The restlessness is a reminder, a very old one. And here is the part that most people miss entirely. True silence, the kind you can access deliberately, with practice, after your nervous system learns to trust that the absence of sound is not the absence of safety, produces some of the deepest restorative states the human brain is capable of entering. Not despite the discomfort, but because of what comes after it. Studies on contemplative practice consistently show that once the threat detection response is down-regulated through repeated exposure to safe silence, the brain enters a state of deep consolidation. It processes memories. It repairs emotional regulation. It restores cognitive reserves that stimulation quietly drains away. Your ancestors called this sleep. They got more of it than you do. And the silence they slept through was surrounded by other humans breathing within arm's reach, and crickets, and wind, and the sound of a fire settling into embers. So tonight, when the room gets quiet, notice what happens in your body. Notice the reach for the phone. Notice the impulse to speak, to hum, to fill the space with something. Do not judge it. That reflex is not a weakness you developed. It is intelligence you inherited. It is your nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do, scanning the dark for the sound of something dangerous, and finding, in the absence of that sound, the absence of everything that ever meant safety. Silence still sounds like danger to you. It always will. Until you remember that you are surrounded by people, and that the forest is quiet because nothing is hunting, and that somewhere very nearby, someone you belong to is still breathing. You sat down in a quiet room and reached for your phone. And now you know why.